Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @itchjacinho. We got a deal done, it looks like, you guys. It looks like we got a deal done. I mean, it wouldn't be the first one, right? Like, because obviously we've signed Tavares and we know Lokonga is pretty much done. But Ben White looks to have gotten done. Look at that, you guys. Look at that. It's not like Arsenal's just sitting around doing nothing. They're actually getting deals done. Who would have thought, So we're going to be talking about that, getting our reactions to Ben White seemingly being confirmed. Everything is agreed in principle. He just needs to get his medical done, but obviously he's on vacation right now. We're also going to talk about kind of like this saga going on with Locatelli. Do we actually think it's going to get done? We know that he is desperate to go to Juventus, but can Juventus present a fee or a bid that's presentable to Sassuolo? I'm not sure. So we'll talk about that as well. We're going to talk about Bellerin. George just let me know that there was some breaking news about Bellerin, so we'll talk about him as well. He looks like he might be going to Inter. Yay. And then also Aouar. He seems to still be somebody that we're looking at, and a lot of mixed reports there. So we'll try to unpack that a little bit and see what our thoughts are and see if we can kind of make sense of it all. But there's about 70 of you guys watching already. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to go ahead and bring George in. George! Hey, George.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So, yeah, let's jump in. It was a quiet day, and then it was kind of just like a news blast, if that's what you want to call it, like towards the end of the day, which is kind of interesting. That's why I like the transfer window, because things just kind of happen out of nowhere and you're like, what the heck, so yeah. But so Ornstein it actually came from the Sun first. The report actually came from the Sun first, and then Ornstein basically reported on it as well, that Arsenal have struck an agreement in principle to sign England center back Ben White from Brighton. Deal for the 23-year-old is subject to medical and will take some time to be completed, mostly because he's on vacation, right? So yeah. Happy.
I'm ecstatic. I love Ben White. I think our tactical video kind of showed his versatility, and we talked in depth about what he is. I'm still not sure if that's Kelly or Ben. I haven't seen them together in the same room, so I can't confirm. But in terms of like how much I love this deal, it's immense. Like, I don't think people understand how horrible progression was for us in terms of chance creation. Like, I really struggle hitting our forwards and slamming them down because of how dysfunctional this midfield was and how dysfunctional our progression was from the first phase out to the other end of the box, because it was a really big issue that, we just constantly made like Band-Aid fixes for, and we constantly subbed, and now I'm just happy that no longer has to become an issue. I think there's a lot of people that are worried about the price. I've always felt it's in line with what we're looking at here. When you look at a young English center back who is 23, almost 24, prime age. I'm looking at Nathan Ake, who moved, who was considered homegrown, right? I know he's not English, but he was homegrown and moved for £40 million plus add-ons, and then I see Ben White 50 million all in. Like, I don't think that's too much of an issue again for somebody that got internationally capped. So price, look, it's a little steep, but I think this should tell people, I really think that, we're in for a big window. I mean, you can't have Ben White in addition to all that we've done, and then you add a very strong Madison link. I mean, you just start adding those prices up. You're already at 150 million pounds of quoted asset. We already have 100 million in the bank with half the window still to go. So yeah, it's exciting. Like you said, calm news day that just banged into action. So
then boom, it was just like that. I was like, oh, thank God something happened. Okay, so yeah, but I think people underestimate the importance of us being able to build up, the right way. I know that it's not exciting. You guys, I get it. It's not exciting seeing a defender come in because our mind is programmed to be more excited about strikers and attacking midfielders, 10s, all that kind of stuff. And so this may not seem like a big deal, but the reality is if we remember last season, the end of the season, once Luis kind of went down, a lot of our ball progression went downhill. And it's not really to be rude to Rob Holding or anything, but it's just not his thing. It's just not his vibe. He's just not a guy that he's not very good building the ball out of the back. He looks a little bit on the shaky side. He doesn't really seem to have that kind of that trigger to know when to hit the pass. And I'm not sure if that's because he's not confident that he can make it. But Ben White is the type of player that can make in a split second to make the decision whether to pass it up the line or do a crossfield pass. And one of the things that I picked out from some of the games that I watched of him playing for Leeds and for Brighton is that he does have that crossfield ball, but not just that. He can also play the ball between the lines, and he can kind of progress the ball just dribbling as well. So he has a lot of different facets to him, and I think we're taking it for granted now, but when we have him in the side and he's there with Gabriel, I think we're going to see something a lot different that we're missing, because even though David Luiz gave us some of that, he was a little bit on the older side. He was a little bit, error prone, and Ben White doesn't really have that, So do you kind of agree that maybe we're taking it a little bit for granted just because it's a defender, and defenders don't really maybe get the respect that they deserve in terms of how they transform the way that we attack?
As a former defender, I could not agree more with you. It was
You were a defender?
I was a defender. Yeah, I played left back for so long.
Oh,
and,
nice.
It
Nice.
was kind of a case of look, we're going to give you guys the platform to succeed, but at the end of the day, when I look at Ben White, there's a lot of tactical pieces that just fit beautifully with. If you look at his progression from Bielsa to Brighton, the roles that he's played, and then how we utilize our right center back, the ticks just become more and more and more and more. And so the one thing I really want to highlight is, Ben White is kind of a stopper in defense. He does sweep in terms of how he's played it for both Bielsa and Brighton. And you know what? For both of those, he was asked to defend that kind of middle third corridor, because in both systems, you've got people that are bombing on. And Bielsa, you have their wing backs that are flying forward and ailing. And then you've got, kind of in Brighton, you've got Lamptey flying forward. So he is used to defending space. So if you're sitting there and you're asking, okay, George, I kind of like the fact that, maybe at right back, we can maybe use a little bit more width so we can get Pepe and Saka inside more. Ben White can facilitate that. He is used to that role. So he is absolutely able to cover a big hole in that space. Another thing is, Gabriel, I think for all of his great facets, he struggles in the short and medium range passing. And so when you look at Ben White, he is immaculate in that. He's immaculate between the lines. And it's not just passing. What he has over David Luiz is he's a ball carrier. This is very, very, important, because David Luiz, for all his great things and progression, his slow and his kind of athletic ability meant that he dropped off. So even if you notice with David Luiz, a lot of times, we did play a little bit deeper and we had a tendency not to step up as much. And that was because he just didn't feel as comfortable defending that way. And so he did drop back. You're not going to get that with Ben White. Ben can carry the ball as well. So he's not only able to do the long raking pass out to a left wing in terms of Tierney and do that crossfield switch. he's able to carry the ball well into midfield and do it on his own, and he's done it for Brighton. Add in the versatility of him being even an inverted right back at times, because he did do that for Brighton, and he was often found on the wing. If you look at his touch map, people are going to be really surprised. It's very heated towards the touchline. And that's because he had this idea of bringing in deep from the middle and then progressing out wide. And that is exactly what we're asking Chambers to do at the inverted role, but also what I feel that we're going to ask our right center back to do. Like, we asked Chambers to do that because we don't have a center back, or we didn't, to do that role. Now you start adding a player that can do that in the back. Thomas Partey doesn't have to drop deep. Thomas Partey can now go up a little bit more. You're now giving the ball to your midfielders and attackers in zones where they actually like it, instead of dropping deep. It really allows us to become a halfway line defending team. And that is huge in terms of turning these games that, everyone saw that we struggled against people outside the top six, I would say, into much more confident wins. This is how you become a more dominant team, addressing the technical security in the back, so that you can get the ball to your forwards as quickly and, increase those chances for 1v1 moments. And we've talked about that in the past. So look, I'm just absolutely ecstatic with this, because I really do believe that, this is going to be a key cog, not just, in the short term, but, it allows us to do so many different things, and it doesn't make us rigid to one system. And I think that's the biggest thing that, these early moves are doing. You look at Tavares, Lokonga, and, even Ben White. What they allow is, we can play the Arsenal way for the entirety of the season. We could not do that last season. And, I argue when we did play our way, the results were typically in our favor on the whole. And so making sure that we have competent, backups, but also starters that can do this vision is just key for how we see us moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just I'm excited to see how this works out. I think that this is anything but a defensive move. Buying a defender does not always mean it's defensive. It's actually offensive, making sure that we don't have to have Rob Holding pushing us further and further back because he's afraid to be far away from the goal. So I think it's an interesting signing. I think it has to go right because, I mean, we did push the boat out for him. It's really expensive, and we know that we've overpaid, not because it's just the English tax thing, isn't it? And he's in the English national team and all that kind of stuff. But overall, a good signing, in my opinion. I'm okay with it. Like, it is what it is. I don't think that this signing will make as big of a difference as we want if we don't get the other things taken care of. But I do think we'll get something else done. Like, I don't think that this is it. So yeah, and you guys, we did a whole video on Ben White, went into the statistics and analytics and all that kind of stuff. So you guys could go back and watch that. It's like the featured video on the channel. So if you guys want to watch that after you leave here, we actually go into depth about him and Lokonga and Madison and how they fit into the team. So you guys can watch that there. But yeah, I like that somebody called him Benjamin Blanco. I feel like that's what I want to call him from now on. I love that name. I love it. It's amazing. It's everything, but oh my gosh, are we calling Coop Miners the Coop too?
He's got to be the Coop.
The Coop and the Smith. So many different names, It's just so interesting because yesterday we talked about Coop Miners, and I think we were all kind of in agreement that was a good deal. But then now we're seeing all this stuff about Locatelli. And I've been so anti this the entire time, not because I don't think he's a good player, but because I just didn't want to get my hopes up. It just really feels like we're being used as bait to go ahead and get Juventus to shit or get off the pot. But at the same time, I don't think they have the peas. I really don't think they have it. I don't see how they're going to be able to match the bid that we've put in. At first, I thought it was just air. I do think that this is our number one target. And we can also have a conversation about whether we should be pursuing somebody who is quite vocal about wanting to go somewhere else. But, as Arsenal right now, do we feel like we need to do some convincing to get our top targets? But, for you, are you starting to maybe change from thinking like this is just a ploy to get Juventus to get things done? Or are you thinking that there's some legs to it and maybe we should start sitting up and paying attention?
I mean, there's definitely legs. I think you'd have to be blind to say not. I mean, all our links have come in a similar profile. So as much as I am really detesting that type of profile, like I think we're both on record that that's not where we want to go in midfield, but it, the links are consistent. And so I think it would be illogical to say, yeah, there's nothing to that. And so
I
um,
love it.
there's certainly something to it. Look, I think with the Locatelli thing, there's a couple of issues here. I do think that we are being used in the media. I think the fact that this is such a public negotiation, it gets me very unsettled because it's not only about the player here. I don't think this is how Arsenal do business. Like I've never seen that happen before with our targets. Regardless, like we've seen links and stuff, but we've never been involved in public declarations from opposing CEOs. That's not how we do business. And so when I combine that with maybe the player itself, because I think there's actually a lot of misconception about what is Locatelli, right? I don't think he's quite the deep lying playmaker that people are saying. You know, if you do watch him, he's a passing 6'8", but he plays a lot higher for Sassuolo. And why I've been so against this type of profile is because what it indirectly means to Thomas Partey. Like you're looking at a player right now who, he'll replicate the Xhaka role, but he's going to step up into midfield quite a lot more. He arrives in the box a lot more than people think. Like he is a type of player that will play ahead of the ball. And I am worried that what that means is that Thomas will then play behind the ball as a result. And that is why even, with a Ruben Neves, I've always been afraid of that transition because what you're looking at is one of these two has to take over the progression reins. I've always felt that Thomas Partey is a Thiago type of midfielder that, if you look at it, he loves the play ahead of himself, but he's an orchestrator and build-up. You see United away, you see even West Ham, both instances in different systems where he was in charge of build-up and had arguably his best performances, And so in order to facilitate him, I've always felt like he's needed something else. But if the links are continuing to go for a deep lying playmaker, then I think Locatelli is the best on the market, though. So again, I'm really caught because philosophically, I don't like this. I don't think that's the way to go forward. But if
Right.
you do go there and you're like, George, no, this is just the way that it's going to be, then cool, get the best one on the market. And so for me, Locatelli is the best one on the market. So I'm still, though, very hesitant. I really don't know if this is really gonna happen. I think I find it odd that they're willing to meet Juventus again if it's such a dead rubber that they're miles apart. You know what I mean? I feel like we know the player's desire here, and I really feel like in transfers the player's desire really rides a lot more than money sometimes. And there are times that we know that players force things either through transfer requests in the selling aspect, but also in terms of a buying aspect too. So I'm worried. I've never seen an Italian do well in the Premier League too. Jorginho has done okay, but has there been an elite Italian player in the Premier League? I don't know.
I don't
And
know.
when I look at him, he struggles over the first 5 yards, and this is my key metric that I use for all of my
That's
midfielders.
going on the bingo card there. That's one of them.
that's that's one of the bingo, him and Thierry
Yeah.
Small. But you know, that's the thing I struggle with him. But look, he's immense. Like when you look at the top 5 leagues in terms of under 23 progressions from deep, he is only bested by Boubakary Soumaré and Renato Sanchez. So in terms of progression, you're getting an absolute progression monster who is more mobile than Granit Xhaka, who does have those different gait and angles. He's not limited in that sense. He does arrive in the box. If you give him an extra 15 yards, he can run. It's just I don't think he's as explosive to cover that wide space that we'll need, because I see that space on the left really being vacated by Tierney. I think that's going to be the long-term play. I don't think we're going to have him come in to fill out there and then overlap again. I really think that we're going to have Tierney high and wide all the time. So yeah, it's tough for me. I would support it because he's the best on the market in that profile. So if it's George, look, you can't have your other ideas in terms of midfield, and it's like you got to get the deep lying playmaker. Then yeah, Locatelli's top of the list, so you can't not knock it.
Look, you guys, if you guys haven't been here before, I'll just tell you right now, me and George want Bissouma. Like, you know what I mean? I see a lot of people asking, like, well, then who? Then who? We've said so many times that we prefer Bissouma, and I still I don't think this is going to happen. I just feel like at some point they'll come to an agreement. What I did see is that they were miles apart in their valuation or whatever. The deal is just not, it's not, they're not coming close. But then a report came out that said that they're just like 10 million away from the valuation. Basically, they value him at 30 million and we value like Sassuolo like values him at like 40, right? So that's what it would take to get it done. Now, does it actually matter if it's a loan for 1 or 2 years if they know for sure they're going to get the 40? No, it doesn't. And that's really the main difference is if Juventus can come up 10 million, then they're at the same amount as we are. They just want a loan or two before that. And that would satisfy Sassuolo wanting to get a certain fee. And I think that would satisfy Locatelli enough, like, you know what I mean? So he can go where he wants to go. That being said, a lot of people are like, well, why would we sit around if we know that we're a side chick and there's definitely like friend zoning us? Like they are definitely just like not interested. What I will say is that if this is our number one target and we think we have an opportunity to get him, I think we should. And I have a hard time believing that we don't have pre-agreements or have something structured already with other options in that position. I think that's probably why Neves's agent has been spoken to. We know that they've spoken. So it may just be a matter of let's just wait this out and see if we can convince him to come. Let's see if something falls through. You guys, there's like 190 of you guys watching right now. That's absolutely crazy. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Maybe we should come on later. Like you guys actually like the later, the later that we're here, like the more people come. But
Very flattering.
yeah, thank you guys so much. So essentially, like, I just feel like if it's waiting another week to see if you can get your number one target and also showing the world that you have 45 million to throw around. I mean, like, people are forgetting that we're literally offering 40 plus 5. Like, we have money. So, like, let's just calm down. I think we have other targets that we can go to that we've probably already spoken to, just in case this falls through. So I do like that it feels like Arsenal is like, well, this is our number one person. Let's try to go get him. But, then there's the other aspect of people being like, well, should we be trying to go after somebody that we have to convince? We shouldn't have to convince people. I kind of think that when you're sitting outside of Europe and you're not really looking like that big of, like, you're not looking that attractive, maybe you do have to do a little bit more convincing. But George, where do you kind of fall on that? Like, do you feel like if they don't want to come to Arsenal, like if they're not chomping at the bit to come, we should be like, pump the brakes? Or do you think that there is some convincing that's okay? Because I don't necessarily feel like if you have to show somebody that you really want them, that's necessarily a bad thing when you're sitting in a position like we are, where we don't look as attractive as the other teams.
For me, I really don't care. I look at like, just, is the player good? Does he fit what you want to do? And then you move on from there. Like, look, I will say I love the fact that a player doesn't need convincing, though. Like, I mean,
Yeah, of course.
and when you look at it, it's never a bad thing that you may have to convince somebody. This is how people take next steps, by the way, like in terms of, thank you. That's very kind. I'll keep it as long as I can, guys. No promises. No, I think, look, for me, you get the player, right? All these soft factors about motivation and, even mentality, I think those come secondary to the play in the system and to what you want to do. Everybody at some point is going to have to prove to get their chance and their shot. How we even started on YouTube, how you even started to progress in your career, in your life. What do? You're always going to be at some point lower, and you're going to have to try to convince your buyer to get yourself in. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you not qualified. So for me, I look at purely, is the player good? Is he fitting what he wants to do? And that's it. I don't know. Okay, the tough thing with Bissouma, I don't want it to make it a Bissouma section, but like,
I knew
look,
you. I was like, maybe we should just spend like 5 minutes talking about Basuma really quick because I don't
can
feel like
we?
people are understanding us. They don't get us. They don't get it. Go
I,
ahead.
I feel like, okay, look, like let's do the case for the defense here, because I feel like, look, on
Wait, but
Bissouma,
Matt wants you to say, screw it. So just like, yeah.
screw it. Screw it. We're gonna do
Screw it.
Bissouma. Just screw it. All right. There.
Go ahead.
I knew this was gonna be a Captain America moment. You know when he does that not even a
Yeah.
swear word. Yeah, I know. It's gonna follow me.
All right, let's talk about Basuma for a second. Why we
Yeah.
would prefer him.
Okay. So I think with Bissouma there is a lot of, people that, haven't done their research on the player, because what I like right now is I want us to go back to a Invincibles route. Okay, I'm very clear in terms of doing that. I want a athletic box to allow both fullbacks to bomb on and to keep ourselves up the pitch. And I feel as though when you have, your fullbacks bombing on, you need a midfield that's athletically able and has enough horizontal agility to meet their marker wide and not to be afraid on the counterattack and in central compactness. Now, a big thing is everybody keeps saying that, Bissouma is, not progressive enough. He passes back, Guys, this is the role that he plays for Brighton. This is not an ability. This is, something that he is being asked to do, because at Brighton, the center backs, and oddly, Ben White, and, those wide center backs are asked to progress the ball. So it isn't just this pace and power recovery pace that he's got. If you look at his numbers for Lille, he's in the 89th percentile for passing progression. That isn't poor. that's actually much better than Ruben Neves, and that's much better than even Locatelli in his league. So he is able to progress the ball. He's just not asked to do that. Now, for me, the biggest key metric difference between the two, okay, is you're not giving that role of progression to Bissouma, but he can do it. And so it's not like you're losing out on that aspect of, a pivot that you like. You're giving that to Thomas Partey. And why that makes the most sense, I don't know if everybody has looked, but Thomas Partey has the most entries into zone 14, or what we would call that top of the D moment. He has even more than Granit Xhaka. And that's playing deeper with Granit Xhaka having the progression range. So when you're telling me that he's not able to progress the ball, I don't know if I agree. And then when you start looking at his metrics about who does Thomas Partey profile great next to, it's Thiago, at Liverpool. And so when I look at what can complement you there, you need to find somebody that is able to patrol that area, but can also progress, because we do progress with a 3, right? So if you're going to have Thomas Partey a little bit ahead, you do need to have somebody that's confident doing that. But guys, again, go back to his Lille numbers. He's in the 89th percentile for passing progression. He is a progressive passer. He's just not asked to do that for Brighton again, because the center backs are responsible for progression. So that's the reason I want a Bissouma, because it would allow us to become 10 yards up the pitch. I no longer have to fear about getting outrun. And really, guys, it's with adding Madison. I think that's the key. When you add a James Madison and a Thomas Partey, right? And I want those two more advanced. I need my deeper pivot to be good in space. That is the real issue I have here. If you're going to add a Locatelli, a Ruben Neves in the context of a Madison and Partey, then I think, yeah, I do really like him. Everyone knows my beginner was, Boubakary Soumaré, but, Bissouma is like the closest plan B I have to that aspect. And look, if we're willing to spend 40 million on Locatelli, it's not a price issue. They're both the same price. It's just a different profile of sitter. And that's the difference between the two. Now, again, I just think that, Bissouma doesn't let us be worried about any athletic transition. I don't carry the same fears with, a Locatelli. I do worry about that. I do worry if we do decide to step up, if we are on the halfway line.
A lot. He leaves his feet a lot.
A lot.
It's
He does.
scary. It's scary.
It is. And look, that's the difference for me. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't think there's a wrong answer, here. They're both, in my mind, top tier options of those profiles. I just prefer Bissouma for off the ball benefits that I don't get with Locatelli. Whereas, I don't feel that you're losing the progression that people keep saying, because again, I urge people to look at what, Yves Bissouma has done at Lille. It does not match what you're saying about progression. And this is why I always am very cautious about people using stats and absolute stats, because radars and stuff that you see in the past season don't speak to a player's ability. They speak to what the player's been asked to do. And so when you're
100%, yeah.
watching them, you need to make sure, can they do this or can they not? And I can assure you, Manuel Locatelli cannot sprint over the first 5 yards. So if you're going to expect that, don't get upset when he can't do it. But he's great on the progression. He
I'm
is.
crying. No, I get you. I get you. And like, because like, okay, so for me, I'm just gonna keep it really short. Like my whole thing is, what is this gonna do to Thomas? Like,
Yeah.
that's it. I want the best person for Thomas because he's the am I finding somebody to date my son? Like, what the heck? It sounds like it's like I find the best person for like, you know what I mean? But seriously,
What are
like,
your intentions with Thomas?
what are your intentions with Thomas, Manuel? What is going on? Are you going to leave him there for dead? Are you going to be able to track back? But I think for me, like, I know that there's box to box players that we tend to really like, you know, especially at Arsenal. We had, we had Ramsey, he was a box to box type player. There's different types of box to box players. Camavinga is a box to box player, but you're saying they have to be able to contribute in the final third. Camavinga actually doesn't do that. A lot of box to box players don't. They facilitate between the defense in the front line. Basically, sometimes they're the pass before the pass. Sometimes they score. Sometimes they don't. It depends on what they're being asked to do. Are they there to break up play? It just depends. So Thomas may not be a box-to-box that really fits your eye because you're looking for somebody that's like Ramsey, but Vieira was a box-to-box. Like, that's what he was. A lot of people think he was a defensive center midfielder. He wasn't. He was a box-to-box, and Gilberto, was his Robin to his Batman, if that's what you want to say. And like Vieira did pitch in with goals every once in a while, but not really. But what Gilberto and Vieira gave us the ability to do was just win the midfield battle and allow everybody else to do their jobs. And so Bissouma and Thomas are pretty similar to that. So I understand where the apprehension is, because you're like, where's the creativity going to come from? Well, we have somebody named Kieran Tierney who creates like tons of chances for us that we're not actually able to take advantage of. If you have a good right back that's not Hector Bellerin that can actually put in the final ball, then you get a lot more from him, and you don't have to worry about him coming out of position and leaving the right-sided center back for dead. That's what you really get with that midfield pivot. But some people really want to see a passer or somebody like a Locatelli. He's just better on the eye for people that are looking for that. So I completely understand, but there are different types of box-to-box players, And Jim asked, like, should Party have all the creative responsibility in the pivot? Again, it just depends on what you think your pivot is supposed to be. If you want somebody that has more passing ability, you're asking for, Locatelli does have more ability in the final third than like a Granite, but I think it'll really kind of be quite similar still. I don't think he's going to be putting in the final ball the way that we think he's going to be. I really think we're going to play with a 10 that's going to really orchestrate. That's what I think. That's just me, but we'll get off of the subject. But you guys let us know in the chat box who you'd prefer, in the midfield. And I think once Granite is officially gone, we'll see things
movement.
kind of firm up, and we'll see like what the team is thinking, what the club is thinking. But let's touch on what was the other thing that we were going to talk about? Oh, Bellerin. You had news on Bellerin, so yeah, go ahead and let everybody know what the deal was with that. I missed it.
Yeah, well, there was an exclusive with Mark Irwin. I don't know if people know, and I know it's from The Sun, but look, Mark Irwin's a very reliable journalist, and typically when you have some of those like big exclusive bombs, they are quite credible. And basically what he said is that, Arsenal are basically looking for £15 million, and they're not budging on, a loan with an option to buy. They really want it, but they have, I guess, reduced it down to £15 million in terms of their now asking price, which, really could be enticing for, Inter, who have a really bad financial situation, but having an obligation to buy just seems, kind of the compromise between parties. And at £15 million, that really could be a green light, and, just something, that they're looking to do to put it on next year's books, right? Because in terms of an accounting ability, it just makes sense for them that they're really not going to buy too many, but they do need a right back, right? And so like they're going to have to replace Hakimi. And, in terms of just a coach, I've always thought that they would actually Bellerin would go to Inter, because Ngazi, who was previously at Lazio, kind of employed these wingback systems, but had underlapping wingbacks. And look, that's Hector. Like he is not somebody I'm really a big fan of, in terms of quality. But he does that role great. And you know what? In Serie A, he'll be fine. He won't be exposed as much for the lack of pace that he does have now. But I'm just happy that we're seeing movement. I think if I'm really looking back at some of these departures, right, like Granit Xhaka, Hector Bellerin, those are some big voices in the dressing room. Like, regardless of what you may feel about their quality, right, that is a huge influence. And there's going to be a gap, okay? There's going to be a gap and a void in that dressing room. And I'm just ecstatic at who steps up, because that leaves the place for like a Kieran Tierney type. That starts to leave the place, from Bukayo Saka, that post, I don't want to get too much into it, but that's like a leadership quality. I know that, you really want to just look at somebody, in terms of, if they're good on the pitch, but also, do they take responsibility? And I really feel that these two departures are very symbolic of us closing the door on the past, really.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. Like, it's just, although they led in certain ways, that's not the type of leadership that we need. We need something different. And once they leave, people will step up. We already know Tierney's going to be one of them. Arteta has,
Yeah.
I think he's kind of earmarked Ben White to be somebody a little bit more of a leader in our team. Didn't really see that at Brighton, but maybe he knows more than we do. I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's spoken to him. So it's going to be interesting to see how things change. But I think what we have to remember is that the market there's skint in Europe, you guys. So it's going to be difficult for us to get the fees that we feel like we should be getting. If Inter is able to offer us a loan with an obligation to buy for 15 million, we're good. We're out of Dodge. Like, we can move on. We can just do something else. And, they're already kind of saying like Mulder is probably the person that we're going for. The right back target is starting to, appear. So I think we'll see some movement. I have to be honest, you guys, I don't know anything about Mulder. I don't know anything. Like, I really don't. But
sounds like a mushroom, guys. I'm not too sure.
I know. So we'll learn a little bit more about him, but that's good that there's some movement on that. And I couldn't be happier. Like, I think nothing negative about Bellerin, really. I don't like the way he plays, but good person, time to move on. And, we'll see what happens with that. But most of the chat box at this point wants to really talk about Aouar and Madison. There's so many conflicting reports about Aouar, like so many. We're in it, we're out of it. We've dropped out because Manchester United, Liverpool, all these other teams are involved. We've offered a bid, we haven't, and all this kind of stuff. But when I sat down and kind of thought about it, I was thinking, this is typical a loss. It's freaking typical to put the asking price so low on Aouar to try to get some sort of bidding war going. I think he knows that that's probably the only way that they're going to get more than what they really should be getting for him. And honestly, you guys, I think we're probably one of the most interested. If you look at the teams that are being listed in the group that are interested, Manchester United, does that make sense? It actually doesn't make any sense. Liverpool, I'm not quite sure that's the direction that they're going into. I think they really want Saul. So I'm looking at it like they're using other teams to try to make it seem like there's more action going on and then try to drive up the price. I never thought we'd get him for 25. I always thought there was an end game there. A loss does not play around, like he really doesn't. So I think when the reports are out there kind of saying like, we're dropping out, I wouldn't be surprised if that was just like, hey, we'll see if he's here at the end of the window, and then we'll come back and offer them 20 when they don't have any other bids. Like, you know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on, what do you kind of think is going on with that? Do you actually think we're interested? Do you think we're not? And like, in terms of Madison versus Aouar, who would you rather have? I'm literally seeing people in the chat box, I think this is kind of like a separate conversation, saying that Madison is not creative enough. I could not disagree more. So yeah, but just start off with kind of like what you think about the deal. It's our interest.
Well, there's definitely interest. And like, I think it makes sense. Everyone kept telling me for almost a year now, there's no way, his brother jerked us around, it's not going to happen. And I go, why? Like, the profile makes complete sense in terms of what you're looking for. Again, when we look at that Arteta player, elite over 5 yards that carries it into 15, versatile,
I love it.
the bingo words that we've all said. I hope everyone can recognize. Like, he is it in terms of that. If you're comparing Aouar and James Madison, it's really the same dynamics, but you're going to look at Emile Smith-Rowe just operating in a slightly different role. But the end game is the exact same. You're looking at these two players that just have slightly different tweaks to how they're going to perform the same attacking patterns. So with Aouar, you're much more likely for him to perform the left wing role. Like, that's going to be kind of like a pseudo 10 that's going to drop in, participate in play, but allow Emile Smith-Rowe to be kind of the overload expert who's going to go from side to side wherever the ball is to kind of participate in triangles. Whereas your James Madison, he can do that, but he's going to be a lot more of a final third player. And so you're going to have, Emile Smith-Rowe carrying on in the left wing role while you have James Madison being a little bit more of a final third action player. But also, guys, in terms of like the creativity between both, their metrics actually match up very similarly, in terms of their shot creating actions, in terms of their XG per 90, any of your creative numbers, they're pretty much neck and neck if you're really looking at it. And James Madison has a lot more clear output, and he carries a different threat. If I'm looking between the two, I'm choosing Madison. But and everyone knows how much I've loved Houssem Aouar, and the reason I'm choosing him is because of what that means complementing Emile Smith-Rowe. Because right now, Emile Smith-Rowe, however much I love him and I believe in his potential, he right now is lacking a final ball and is lacking output. Now, it's not to say he'll never get it. In fact, I'm on record for saying he'll get it very quick. But he just purely does not have that right now. Whereas Houssem Aouar, by the way, does not have that right now either. And he's very much in the same mold where he could develop it, and he probably will develop it. But fundamentally, what we're missing right now is output. This is something that we're missing, including a set piece threat. And so when I start looking between the two at a Houssem Aouar and a James Madison, who, by the way, yeah, he has seasons of experience here. He's done it. We can see what he's done. That is, a bow to the arrow, so to speak. So when I look at it, I really feel as though Emile Smith-Rowe can replicate what Houssem Aouar would do. He can. And he can do the same with what Madison would do. But together, who is better? Houssem Aouar and Emile Smith-Rowe? Do we get the same output? Do we get the same dynamism both ways as we would with a Madison and Emile Smith-Rowe? Because make no mistake, they're going to end up doing the same thing, right? Like, these two pairs are both going to be tasked with a lot of interchange, okay? It's going to be very fluid. It's just slightly tweaked. But how I look at it is Madison has much more output. That pairing of ESR and Madison has much more output. It's more dynamic both ways. I see them working back a lot more, and I see them able to prove it kind of in the Premier League, which, carries those three big pluses. And yeah, I think James Madison, in terms of creativity, there's a lot of lies. I'll say it. There's a lot of lies that have been told.
But you know what it is, though? It's that creativity, to me, is what Ozil was doing. I think we're conditioned to see creativity in a certain way.
Yeah.
So he doesn't look as creative because he maybe is not he is the thread the needle type of, like, he can do those passes, but he's really like sometimes plays like almost like a secondary forward almost, like, and it's really similar. He's more similar to Bruno Fernandes, and I've always kind of said that I'd prefer that over the Odegaard poetry and motion guy. I want the person that's going to get the most output, the most goals, and Aouar takes a lot of shots, but he hasn't quite got his shooting boots on quite yet. Whereas I think Madison steps straight into the team and gives you more goals, like, just right off rip. And so it depends on what you like, but I think we've seen the poetry in motion creative guy, and I think those players tend to struggle when you sit on top of them. I think they also lack that next level of, like, what you really want. So for me, like, with the whole Madison thing, I think Aouar's the better deal if you think that we don't have the funds, like, you know what I mean? If you feel
Yeah.
like it's going to affect other things that we want to do, definitely the better deal if you can get him for 25. But I don't think that's actually the case unless nobody else comes in for him. And I think at least one more team will. I like the Madison with Smith Rowe out on the left, because you guys, honestly, Smith Rowe is very similar to Aouar, in my opinion. I think they have similar qualities. Like, I don't think when you look at them, you don't see the same, because Smith Rowe is 6 foot tall and, all that kind of stuff. And Aouar is quite small, but they do a lot of the same things. So if you want to just put Smith Rowe out on the left and play Madison through the middle, then you have that. Whereas you can't really put Smith Rowe out on the left and Aouar in the 10. It would be switched. And then you have the problem of Smith Rowe playing too many games and potentially getting injured. Not that I'm saying Aouar can't play the 10. I know he can, but it's not the same as like Madison and Smith Rowe. You know what I mean? So,
And yeah, Jess,
go
you know
ahead.
what? Like really, really quickly too. Like, there's just a couple things on Madison and why I prefer it too. Like if you were to get a James Madison, we have options, by the way, on the left. We don't have options in the middle. So I look at it also as an injury standpoint. Let's say ESR gets injured in both pairings. Do you have an alternative to the 10? Because like you said, Houssam Aouar does not operate in that hole as well. And has not shown his ability to do that both sides. So whereas if Emile Smith-Rowe got injured on the left, I've got Gabriel Martinelli, I've got now Reece Nelson who might leave, but I've got Keto Taylor-Hart. I have options to replicate something on the left. Even, Oba, I have options there. If Emile Smith-Rowe got injured with a Houssam Aouar, I don't feel comfortable having a makeshift him into the 10. I really don't. Now, alternatively, look, in terms of the shot creating actions, guys, he's got like 105 shot creating actions that, works out to about 40 per 90. That's not poorly creative. So he is creative. And another thing with James Madison is the mental aspect. I hate to having to go into this, but if you guys watch any kind of interview with James Madison, okay, yeah, he might have some outside gossip, but if you look at him, he is a very driven individual that, he's saying all the right things in terms of being a little bit arrogant. And you know what? I think this squad needs it. I really don't think we've got somebody that's like, yeah, I'm the man. Give the ball to me. I want that. I want that pressure. And I want you all to know that I'm the man. I don't think we have anybody in the team that's, demanding that. And I don't want Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka to do that right now. I really think that, it's great to have that pressure on somebody else, another 24-year-old. And I don't think Houssam Aouar is the type to do that, by the way. If things aren't going well, he won't change the game, because he is. And look, I love the kid. Like, I don't want it to get across that I don't like Houssam Aouar, but I want to speak honestly about these two playing styles and their mentality, because James Madison will. I urge everyone to look at some of these interviews, because he is the type of person waiting to get to the next step. And, I really feel as though he would be perfect for what we need, both in missing goals from midfield, output in improving efficiency in the front line, but also all the soft factors of lacking a leader and just a personality in terms of demanding the ball, demanding actions, demanding and pointing to his players where to be. And just very lastly, Jess, we've talked about this in previous streams. Who does James Madison work the best with in the last 2 years? Jamie Vardy. Who is Jamie Vardy? Very similar. Oh, I don't know, maybe one of those strikers that we have on our books who isn't doing quite the output that we expect. That connection between a Oba type at striker and, James Madison, it has to excite people. Like, when you start looking at all of those factors, if money was not an object, right? And you're looking at players, it's got to be James Madison every day of the week for me.
Yeah, you guys. And honestly, like, I know we want to know so badly what the club is thinking. And I think we can say that we're interested in Madison, we're interested in Aouar. I don't know if we'd be able to get both. But what I can say is I think that that's probably the last one coming in, and it's probably the one that people want to see the most. But, we'll just see. They try to bring Odegaard back in, in terms of, I still think that that's our number one. Like, that's what we really wanted to do, but it may not be possible. So I do think it's going to take to the very end. And I think depending on what happens with the midfielder, it'll have a ripple effect. And, I just think it'll be, because with Aouar, I don't see us going in for him until the very end, so we make sure we can get him for as cheap as possible. And then with Madison, I think if we were to get him, Leicester is going to hold on for as long as possible, make us sweat, and it'll take forever. So, you guys, I think this one is the last one that'll get done. But, people are kind of asking, what do we think is going to be the end result of the window? So we can just kind of go through it before, we get out of here. But at the very least, what do you think we're going to accomplish? Like, what do you think?
Okay, so I definitely feel as
Wait,
though
I'm sorry. George is the heart of this channel? Am I not the beating heart of this channel? What?
I don't know, guys. I think
So George
it's
is
in the
the heart.
description.
What
I
am
don't know.
I? We know Harry is the what do we want to call him?
Guys, I'm beans. I'm
The
beans
the
in the
funny
roast
guy.
dinner. Okay, I'm beans in the roast dinner, and Jess is
So
the heart
what
of
am I here? Like, do I not exist? Wow. Okay,
it.
guys. Well, I'll let that go for now. But so what do you think? I mean, we joke about this all the time. Like, we give each other like, I'm not the brains either. I thought George was the brains. So am I not the heart? I don't understand. We know what Harry is the fun,
Mm,
and Souls is the passion.
yeah.
He's the passion. So you're the brains. You have to be. Okay, so
Uh,
George, you're the brains and the heart, apparently. Whatever.
Please.
I'm the speaker. Like,
Very, very.
I'm the facilitator. Like,
I don't know, guys.
whatever.
I
All
think
right.
Jess has
Yeah.
definitely got the hearts here and the brains in the channel. I'm the beans, like I said. I'm the beans in the roast dinner.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so at the very minimum, what do you think we're gonna get done?
So I'm actually not sure on the right back, to be honest with you. I need to see two leave. That's my problem. So if I were to go and look at it, I think Bellerin goes. I really do. I think that's going to happen. But it's really dependent on Ainsley Maitland-Niles going. And so if that happens, right back becomes a possibility for me. I do think James Madison does. He definitely does come. And I do believe that we get another central midfielder. I'm going to stick to my guns. Look, I could have egg on my face. I don't believe a deep lying playmaker is the role. I've said my reasons why I prefer it. I still, against all
Say it with
odds,
your chest, George. Say it with your
I
chest.
believe that Yves Bissouma. That's my end game, and that is my absolute play on the cards. I'm hoping I can come back to
Yeah.
this video and look an absolute genius and from the future, but I think that we do get a starting central midfielder, though, whether that's somebody else. My pick is Bissouma. Definitely
Yeah.
think Madison. And then I do think that we get a goalkeeper. And I still always have felt it's going to be Onana. Like, I do think that it's a Kieran Tierney 2.0 kind of situation where he can't really, train until I think it's September. So why would we spend wages on something and to have him in? And I really think that we know that he wants us. So I really do think that Onana is it. And wow, right back. Okay, everyone knows right back could be a jeopardy, and I will say that. But everyone knows my favorite right back, who I hope to have convinced Arsenal Twitter on, is Rydal Baku, and that is,
Yeah.
I believe, the end game of this. If we are able to secure Ainsley Maitland-Niles going in addition to Hector Bellerin, so I guess to round up, I think there are 4 signings on the way. I think there's a first central midfielder. I think there's a first attacking midfielder. I think there's a backup goalkeeper, and I do think we get a right back. So when you do go through it, my window leftovers would be Bissouma, Madison, Onana, and Rydal Baku. I just think Rydal Baku is the clear choice on the market. He can do any role you want, inverted, overlapping fullback. Again, 23, I believe, or 22, and really, really young. Just got the most assists at the under 21 Euro. So I think he is actually just 21, turning 22. So prime age player. Recorded one of the most sprints in the Bundesliga. And he lastly also played right center midfielder for Mainz the year before. So he is just a perfect player, and he's in my bingo mold of the traits that I love. So Rydal Baku is absolutely my pick any day of the week.
Man, yeah. I think I'm gonna go more with what we're already kind of like linked with, and I want to set I don't want to go too high because I already know like I'm not getting what I want. Like, I already
Join me, Jess.
know.
Join me.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I'm gonna say that I think we're gonna bring in either Ramsdale or Johnstone. I just think we're gonna get some sort of English goalkeeper. I just think it's
Giving me
yeah,
nightmares,
I
Jess. You're
think so.
giving me nightmares.
I think we'll get one of those, and the fan base will capitulate over it. I think something tells me that there's legs to the Mulder thing. We've clearly been in contact with Sassuolo, so I wouldn't be surprised if we also spoke to them about Mulder. I know nothing about him, but I think he'd be cheap, and that's probably why we'd want to bring him in. So I'm going to say Mulder, even though I don't know anything about it. I'm going to say Aouar. Like, I would prefer Madison, but something just feels like Leicester's going to be annoying, and yeah, I feel like they're going to be like 80 million and you got him, like, or something like that. And it's going to be super annoying. And I also saw that they are offering him double wages to try to keep us away. So I think we will get Aouar, and I think we'll miss out on Locatelli. But what I'm hoping, and this is my hopeful ask, is that we don't go for Neves and we go for the coup. That's what I'm going with. I want, I just want to, at the end of the window, to be able to say the Smith, the Coop, Benjamin Blanco. We have
You
to
like
get
the
some
single
more.
syllable nicknames, don't you? Very
Yeah, but
quick,
I
roll
like
off the
Benjamin
tongue.
Blanco. I like that a lot. Like, that's actually
That's hilarious.
perfect. I love it. So that's what I'm going to say, on top of the
Hmm.
fact that we're going to have Lakanga, White, and Tavares, so, and honestly, I feel like besides the goalkeeper, if that's what we did, if we ended up, like, especially with the main positions, Aouar and Coop Miners, Coop Miners, yeah.
Hmm.
I wouldn't die. Like, I'd be like, okay, we have addressed a lot of things. Hopefully it works out and we'll see how it goes. But I'm not as optimistic as you are. I do think that some of the links that have already come out are quite firm, but I am hoping that Coop Miners becomes a little bit more firm than Neves, because now that I've seen that, now I can't unsee it. And I'm feeling like, yeah, that feels better than Neves for some reason. And I also think Wolves is going to try to rinse us and want more than what he's probably worth. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens with that. But you guys,
I
this
just
was,
I don't think that they're going to make Benjamin White the biggest
oh,
fee
yeah.
of the summer. That's my only thing. So there's got to be one project, because for me, I just feel like, of all the cheek that we've got in the window, and even with, in terms of just Arteta staying, he needs a project guy. I don't think that's going to be James Madison. So maybe the other ones work. Look, if Locatelli doesn't work and it is in the deep lying playmaker, I think you're 100% spot on. Coop Miners is way better than Ruben Neves in my mind in terms of fit, and we kind of talked about that, in the
Yeah.
past window. But I don't know. Ramsdale's giving me nightmares, Jess. Like, you're you're
I
making
think
me
that's
feel
what's
so
going to happen.
uncomfortable.
I really do. I think they're desperate to have the number two be an English goalkeeper, and I don't actually know why. Al Breezy is like, why are Arsenal fans so reactionary, wanting players we never knew nothing? So George went with who he really wants. I went
Hmm.
with the links. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know anything about Mulder. If I had my choice, I would want Baku or Tyler Adams. Like, you know what I mean? So I kind of just went for that. But Coop Miners is a player that I know of. When
Hmm.
everything shut down, the Dutch league was still, like, they were showing their games. And so I had a chance to watch some of those players play. Like, you know what I mean? So I do know a little bit about him. And yeah, Aouar. We know about Aouar. So we do know something about those players, but we'll see what kind of happens. I do kind of agree with you that I think, like, Ben White probably won't be the biggest signing, but I think, well, we have 40 something million for Locatelli, right? So we'll see what happens. There is money there, but this is an awesome stream, you guys. There's 286 of you guys watching right now. That's bananas. Like, that's crazy right now. You guys, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I see that the channel has reached 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much.
Congratulations! That's big.
Yay! me.
That's huge.
So yeah, and like honestly, you guys, that's so cool. Like, and I see so
You
many
got your
like
hair
new
done
names
for
and
that exactly. That's
I
what it
did.
is.
I did. You guys got my hair done,
You
and I
do.
was like, I didn't see a lot of compliments on my hair in the chat box. You guys, I'm disappointed. Like, what happened there? You guys are supposed to be like, you look so good. I guess, but hey, can't have it all. But yeah, tomorrow for the game, Twitter Spaces before our preseason game against Rangers. So that'll be an hour prior once the lineup comes out, and then instant reaction immediately following the game. And yeah, so meet us back here tomorrow and be on the lookout for that Twitter Spaces. It's probably going to be fun. The last one was really fun. It's controlled chaos in my world, you guys. I'm not doing those crazy spaces, but we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.